Ymedia.
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 Stay tuned with Ymedia.
Ymedia is a media company. With 360-degree approach in reaching the audience over 8 media platforms.
And I want to know, like, rapid fire type of response on a couple
Sure.
of things. We have a federal by-election happening on August 31st.
Yeah.
You know, we got 3 seats, North Vancouver, we have Beaches, East York, both were held by Liberal and seats. And so that's up to see if another Liberal can take those seats. And then there is the Quebec riding of Chicoutimi-Laforge, and that one was a Conservative riding. It's a 3-way split between the Liberals, the Bloc Québécois, and the Conservatives. What do you think is going to be the turnout on August 31st on the exit polls on all 3?
On all 3?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you want to name one party, I'll say Liberal. Why I would say Liberal? Because I think the numbers that we're witnessing right now for Mark Carney, I've seen different polls, whether it was done from Liaison Strategies. You know, David Valentine was here. You were part of that show, and we saw the polls at the national level. Of course, they haven't done anything poll at a local level. I haven't seen that. Maybe I haven't seen that. Maybe you would know even better than me in these cases. And actually, I should have been given the chance to do some rapid fire with you this time. And I want your opinion too. And I want your opinion too on this one. But I think I'll give all 3 to Liberal. You know, the Conservatives, as much as they do win seats, even when Harper won in 2011, the majority out of the 78 seats, I don't think so. Conservatives had even 15 seats at that time out of the 78 in Quebec. So I've never seen them as a strong player. I think it's always between the Bloc and the Liberals. But if you narrow it down to a particular seat, if you're narrowing it down, I think the wave is with the Liberals right now. So I think Liberals have a strong chance of taking away all 3, but I want you to lead from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And I think it's going to be a hard battle for Pierre Poilievre. Not, you know, if he is to lose another Conservative seat over to the Liberals, and this is the Quebec seat, that's going to be quite devastating for him as leader, because there's been, you know, a lot of losses so far, or floor crossing. So that's going to be very significant in terms of what the Conservatives will do to make sure they maintain that seat as Conservative. So those are interesting. We'll break down in terms of what we're seeing with local polls in North Vancouver and Beaches, East York. You want to stay tuned with us, because August 31st, we're going to do an election night, and we're going to cover with you who's running in all those seats, who are the candidates, what are their backgrounds, and what should people be watching out for. Now, I want to ask you another rapid fire question. Is that September 8th is the day where we're going to have about anywhere from 50%, 25%, 15%, but the total amount will be about that $27.6 billion of tariffs on American manufactured products that come into Canada. Now, do you think before that date, do you think there's going to be a deal made where then Canada does not have to do retaliatory tariffs?
90% no, only 10% yes.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, I'm trying to be on the hopeful side, but the Prime Minister said he doesn't think that there's going to be talks again until after the US midterm. So that would be after November. But, you know, now that we know from Jameson Greer saying, you know what, French language rights, that's not going to be a contentious issue. We don't have an issue with that anymore. And then also the president saying, yeah, we're the ones who made last minute asks that changed everything and made the deal collapse. You know, maybe this is a start of maybe the retaliatory tariffs don't start, because when you would go into that retaliatory tariffs on both sides, it's so much harder to walk off the plank. And we've seen this take place in many places, like what we're seeing with the Iran and the US and all of that conflict. And even we know from personal experience that when things get into a very big situation, think about your personal disagreements, right? And then you almost forget why it started. So sometimes it's better not to escalate it. So you're saying 90% it's going to go ahead, 10% not.
No, no, 90, yeah, 90%. I think there will be no deal. Only I'm still, I'm also factoring in both the things that you discussed, just now regarding Trump, but I'm factoring in so many other things as well. But I mean, collectively, I would say 90%. I don't think so. There'll be any deal before 8th of September. Our tariffs for would go in place for the U.S. exports. As much as you're right, when we asked who is going to win the trade war, both the countries, both sides of the fences are going to end up on the losing end. But yeah, and you're right. I think there is no scheduled talks. The backdoor diplomacy is always on, even if two countries are at war. I mean, if Iran and US are almost at war right now, the backdoor diplomacy is still on. So this is just a trade war. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, those were my two questions of what's been on top of mind.
Can I can I
Yeah,
ask you a rapid fire
yeah,
question since you asked
please,
me?
please.
So
Yeah.
then we'll call it a wrap. What do you think? What do you think of the Ontario Liberal leadership race? Who do you think is going to win there? And by the way, we are going to do another episode of Editor's Take. Both of us will do that. But quickly, very briefly, I want to fire this question your way. Who do you think is going to win? What are the chances Navdeep Bains would win the Liberal leadership?
I see leaderships very similar to like municipal elections. The way I say that is because it's about brand recognition. In municipal politics, you don't have party systems, so it's really up to the candidate to become a popular candidate where people get to know and get to back. And so one of the advantages that Navdeep Bains has is that he's a well-known name in Ontario. He's had exposure to federal politics for a very long time, cabinet minister. And so he's definitely a key player. And so when you run for leadership, it's very important to have that. And then secondary to that is, yes, you could have brand recognition, like what we saw with, some other candidates that did, but they didn't do so well, is because you also need a really great team. So in a leadership election, you're gonna make memberships, and then you're going to make sure that your members who you made come out and vote for you. And then you're also able to appeal to the existing membership core. So this is something that I think Brampton knows to do very well. They know nominations, right? Because any nominations is like the race. It's a leadership race, right? And Brampton knows how to make memberships, knows how to pull out members, knows how to make sure they vote and support. And those are key things. And I think that gives, again, Navdeep Bains an advantage to have that level of organization, to be able to make sure that there is memberships in all the ridings in Ontario, and then to be able to pull out those votes. And then when it comes to money, you can't run a campaign without money, no campaign is the facts of life. And he does, and he has access to deep pocket supporters. And so when you have the check boxes of, are you known? Yes, he's known. Can you have a team that is able to make memberships and then make sure those members come out and vote? The ground game organization, yes, you do. He's been in politics for a long time, but I think the advantage of being in Peel politics and the GTA, you know how to do that. You can organize quite well. And then the major factor is, do you have money to run your campaign? Do you have money to advertise? Do you have money to make your message known to those members? And yeah, he's got access to good funding. So that puts him on all those check boxes ahead of the game. Now, about policy, I can't say, because it's still early on in terms of whose policies are better. But regardless, it's a ground game operation. It's a money. Can you raise money, and can you get out those people to vote? And will people know you, right? And if they know you, do they think you're going to be a good challenger to Ford? Ford's won 3 elections, hands down. Is he going to go for a 4th election? I don't know. If it's not him, the PCs will have a leader that'll go for a 4th election. And this is when the Liberals want to not only take out the PCs, but they also want to go past the NDP, who've been in opposition party status, right, since in the last 3 elections. So those are challenges, and that's what he's going to have to show, that he is the guy to be able to do that. So that'll be very interesting. But it looks like he's the clear front runner in terms of what this leadership election would look like because of all those factors.
Yeah. Thank you. As always, great time at Editor's Take, and we'll.
I'd love to hear your opinion before we go about the Liberal leadership. What you think is going to
Yeah,
happen.
I think Navdeep Bains, he's been, and I've been following him and other candidates as well. But I think Navdeep Bains has been traveling right across Ontario. He's visited parts of Northern Ontario, Eastern Ontario, and of course Southern Ontario. He knows he has a strong base here in Southern Ontario as well. So he's been campaigning a lot. The other thing that I'm seeing is there are obviously people would imagine that he would be leaning on to his South Asian base of supporters, but I see many people who are endorsing his opponent as well. So the vote will be divided within the South Asian bloc, and we all know that no community votes as a complete bloc, so they're all divided. So, but in terms of, you raised a very good point regarding the fundraising. I don't think so that will be an issue, because I've seen him during the Paul Martin era. One of his strong thing was he was able to do fundraising at massive levels. That's why he became the parliamentary secretary. I'm not saying this was the only reason, but he became the parliamentary secretary then and during the Paul Martin era, and then of course the last elections. But when he came back, he came back very strong in 2015. Became the cabinet minister. He was president of the Treasury Board as well, whether Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology. So he was a very strong fundraiser. That's his strength. So I don't think so finance would be an issue for him. He has many contacts. He's worked at a private level in the banking sector and a major Rogers, the communication firm. So he has his links. He's been there at the Bay Street, at the helm of affairs and the corporate affairs. So that won't be his issue. But I think the only issue that he could be facing, how widely he's recognized. You're right. I mean, the face recognition, the brand, the personal brand also matters. But I think he's a strong favorite. In my opinion, he's a strong favorite. And again, I don't want to disclose anything much, but the core team with Trudeau, former Prime Minister Trudeau, they still have some sway. And the core team with Trudeau, at that time, you know what? They were working very closely. The core team which worked with Dalton McGuinty, the core team which worked with Dalton McGuinty's cabinet, the core team which worked with the other cabinets at the provincial level, and the core team which worked with not all, few members of the core team which worked with the Prime Minister Trudeau. So most of them that I've spoken to, and at yesterday at Hilton, I won't name, I spoke with one of the persons, and they were clearly mentioning, we're with Navdeep Bains, we're supporting him. So of course there are others who may not support him as well. I'm not saying everyone is supporting in the core team, but there are quite a few who are supporting. He has some sort of support as well. But let's see. This race is going to be very, very interesting. But if I had to pick one favorite, I would say it's Navdeep Bains. But let's see how the polling numbers indicate. Yeah.
Let's see how it goes. Thank you so much for answering all these tough questions and giving us a breakdown of what's happening between the United States and Canadian relationship, where this is going in terms of this trade war, and as well as what is taking place between Canada and India and what we can expect.
Thank you so much. It's always great being with you, Ramonaji, at an Editor's Take, from Canada to Canada, US to provincial politics. I think we've covered quite a lot, but hopefully there is lots more to cover. I know there's lots more to cover, but maybe in our next episode of Editor's Take. So stay tuned with Ymedia. Keep watching Channel Y. Keep watching Y Plus. Stay tuned with Radio Y FM 105.9. Thank you so much, Ramonaji.
Thank you.
Ymedia Group, the fastest growing media group in North America.